ordinances, and the cold, hard ink in a rulebook. But after 30 years on this bench looking down at the faces of the people of Providence, I can tell you that's only half the story. The law is black and white, but life is a messy, deeply complicated shade of gray. You sit here long enough and you learn to hear what people aren't saying. You learn to see the difference between a criminal who breaks the rules because they don't care and a human being who breaks the rules because they're quietly breaking apart inside. It was a Thursday afternoon, the kind where the rain hits the courthouse windows like a handful of gravel. The air inside was heavy, almost suffocating, smelling of wet wool and anxiety. I'd already gone through a dozen cases, speeding tickets, noise complaints, the usual rhythm of the city. I was tired. My clerk, Inspector Reed, looked ready to go home. But there was one file left on the top of the stack, a thick one, the kind of file that usually means trouble. "Calling case number 404, the clerk announced, his voice echoing slightly in the wood-paneled room. The City of Providence versus Daniel Carter. I adjusted my glasses and opened the folder. The first thing that hit me was the number. It wasn't just a fine. It was a financial death sentence for most people in this city, $5,250. I blinked and looked again just to be sure. $5,250 in accumulated citations, late fees, and penalties. Speeding, failure to stop at a red light, parking in a commercial loading zone, expired inspection sticker. It read like a rap sheet of someone who treated the roads of Providence like their personal racetrack. "Mr. Nicole is present, Your Honor," the bailiff said. I looked up, expecting to see a teenager with an attitude or maybe a businessman who thought his time was more important than public safety. I prepared my stern judge face, the look I give when I'm about to lecture someone on responsibility. But when Daniel Carter stepped up to the podium, the lecture died in my throat. He was a man in his late 30s, but he carried himself like he was carrying the crushing weight of the entire world on his shoulders. He was wearing a faded blue mechanic's uniform with a name patch that was unraveling at the corner. There was grease under his fingernails that no amount of scrubbing could probably get out. But it was his eyes that stopped me. They were red-rimmed, sunken deep into dark circles that spoke of a kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. A kind that eats away slowly. He wasn't standing tall with defiance. He was leaning against the podium, as if it was the only thing barely keeping him upright. He held a crumpled baseball cap in hands that were trembling just slightly, like the faint vibration of an engine running on fumes. Beside him stood the city prosecutor, Mr. Lawson. Lawson was a good man, efficient by the book. He loved the data. He loved the clarity of the system. To him, Daniel Carter wasn't a man. He was a statistic of non-compliance. "Your Honor," Lawson began, straightening his tie, "the defendant has a record of flagrant disregard for traffic laws over the past 6 months. We have 12 separate citations. We have camera footage of him running red lights at 3 a.m. We have parking violations in downtown loading zones. This isn't a mistake. This is a pattern of reckless behavior. The city is asking for the full judgment plus court costs." I looked from the crisp typed list in Lawson's hand to the man shaking in the cheap blue uniform. The data said reckless. The man standing in front of me silently screamed desperate. My gut twisted. That familiar feeling, the instinct that tells you the paperwork is lying to you, started to creep slowly up my spine. "Mr. Carter," I said, keeping my voice neutral, testing the waters. "You've heard the charges. $5,000. That's a lot of money. Do you have a lawyer representing you today?" Daniel looked up. He didn't look at me immediately. His eyes darted around the room first, like he was searching for an exit that didn't exist. When he finally met my gaze, I saw fear, pure, unfiltered panic, barely masked by fatigue. "No, Your Honor," he said. His voice was raspy, dry. "No lawyer. I can't afford one. I barely could afford the gas to get here." "The city says you're reckless, Mr. Carter," I continued, leaning forward, studying his face, running red lights, speeding, ignoring parking signs. "Are you trying to hurt someone out there? Are you driving a getaway car?" It was a standard question, usually meant to provoke a denial or an excuse, but Daniel just lowered his head, staring at his grease-stained boots. "The next shift?" I asked. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 2:00 p.m. "You're dressed for work now. What shift are we talking about?" He took a breath. A shaky inhale that seemed to rattle deep in his chest. "This is job number 2, Your Honor. I just finished at the warehouse. I start at the garage in an hour." Then I do the delivery route at night. I paused. The courtroom went completely quiet. The scratching of the clerk's pen stopped mid-motion. 3 jobs? I asked. Yes, sir, he said. 3 jobs? I repeated. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. In this economy, holding down 1 job is a fight. Holding down 3 isn't employment. It's a marathon without a finish line. It's a kind of quiet servitude to the clock. I looked over at Mr. Lawson. He didn't blink. He didn't shift his stance. To him, the number of jobs was irrelevant detail. The number of tickets was the only math that mattered in his world. Mr. Lawson, I said, keeping my eyes on the prosecutor, did your office inquire about the defendant's employment status before seeking the maximum penalty? Did anyone ask why a man would be driving across the city at all hours of the day and night? Lawson stiffened, adjusting the lapel of his suit. No, Your Honor, the statutes don't require an employment history for traffic adjudication. The violations are clear. The camera footage is unambiguous. Motive doesn't negate the infraction. Maybe it doesn't negate it, I muttered, turning back to the man trembling at the podium. But it certainly explains it, and in this courtroom, explanation matters. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking softly in the silence. I picked up the citation list again, but this time I wasn't looking at the violations. I was looking at the timestamps. Walk me through it, Mr. Carter, I said. Because looking at this sheet, I see a red light violation at 3:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. I see a speeding ticket 45 in a 25 zone at 6:45 a.m. on a Friday. I see parking violations in a commercial loading zone at 12:30 p.m. To Mr. Lawson, this looks like chaos. To me, it looks like a timeline. Help me understand the timeline. Daniel wiped his greasy hands on his pants again, a nervous, exhausted tick. He looked drained just thinking about it. I get up at 3 a.m. Your Honor, he said, his voice quiet, almost fragile. I have to be at the warehouse by 3:30. That's across town. If I'm 1 minute late, they dock me an hour. If I'm late 3 times, I'm fired. That ticket, the red light. He paused, swallowing hard. I was running late. My car wouldn't start. I knew if I missed that light, I'd lose the shift. I didn't see anyone coming. I took the chance. You took a chance because you were afraid of losing your job, I said. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir. That job pays the rent and the speeding ticket at 6:45 a.m., I asked. That's when the shift ends, Daniel explained. I have 45 minutes to get from the warehouse to the mechanic shop on the south side. Traffic starts building up by 6:30. I have to change in the car, usually while I'm driving. I was going too fast because the shop manager said if I wasn't there by 7:30 to open the bay doors, don't bother coming in. I looked at Lawson. You see that, Mr. Prosecutor? That's not joyriding. That's panic. That's a man running a race he can't win. Lawson cleared his throat. Your Honor, with all due respect, the speed limit exists for public safety. Being late for work doesn't give anyone the right to endanger pedestrians. I know what the speed limit is for. I snapped a little sharper than I intended. I'm not excusing the act. I'm trying to understand the actor. I looked back at Daniel. So you work the warehouse, then the mechanic shop. That brings us to the afternoon. These parking tickets, 4 of them, all in the same commercial zone on Broad Street, all between 12 p.m. and 12:30 p.m. You're parking in a loading zone meant for delivery trucks. Why is that where you get lunch? For the first time, Daniel looked deeply ashamed. He stared down at the wood grain of the podium, his shoulders hunching inward. No, sir, he said quietly. I don't eat lunch. Then what are you doing on Broad Street at noon? I asked. Are you running errands? Meeting friends? I'm checking on them, he whispered. Checking on who? My kids, he said. The words cracked. My 3 kids. Their school is on the corner abroad. My lunch break at the shop is 30 minutes. It takes me 10 minutes to drive there, 10 minutes to drive back. That leaves me 10 minutes to run to the fence at recess and make sure they're okay. Make sure they have their coats. Make sure they're still there. The room went deadly silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop humming. You use your lunch break to watch your kids at recess? I asked, my voice softening. Their mom left 2 years ago, Your Honor, Daniel said, tears finally spilling over onto his dirty cheeks. She just left. It's just me. I can't afford after-school care. I can't afford a babysitter. I just need to see them. I park in the loading zone because it's the only spot close enough to the fence where I can see the playground. I'm there for 5 minutes tops. The courtroom was quieter than usual that morning. Not silent, never silent, but different. The usual shuffle of papers, the coughs, the murmurs. They all felt softer, as if the room itself remembered something, as if it had changed. I took my seat, adjusted my robe, and glanced at the docket. Another long list, another series of names, another set of stories waiting to be told or ignored. But something had shifted in me. "Call the next case," I said. The clerk cleared his throat. "Case number 512, the city versus Daniel Reyes." A young man stepped forward. He couldn't have been more than 22, thin, nervous, wearing a wrinkled shirt that looked like it had been slept in. His hands trembled as he held onto the edge of the podium. I looked at him, and for a brief second, just a flicker, I saw Marcus. Not the man he had become, the man he had been. "What are we looking at?" I asked. The prosecutor stood. "Multiple citations, Your Honor. Driving without insurance, expired registration, failure to appear. Total fines, $3,800. The number hung in the air. $3,800. Different case, same weight. I leaned back slightly, studying the young man's face. He wasn't defiant. He wasn't careless. He was scared. "Mr. Reyes," I said gently, "do you have legal representation today?" He shook his head quickly. "No, sir." "Can you afford one?" A pause, then, almost inaudible, "No." I nodded slowly. The room waited. The system waited. But I didn't move forward, not yet. "Tell me something, Daniel," I said, folding my hands. "Why are you here?" The prosecutor shifted slightly. It wasn't the standard question. Not yet. Daniel swallowed hard. I messed up, Your Honor. That's not what I asked." He looked up, confused. "I didn't ask what you did," I said. "I asked why." The word landed. Why? He blinked rapidly, as if no one had ever asked him that before. As if the question itself had unlocked something. "My mom's sick," he said suddenly. The words rushed out, messy and unprepared. She can't work anymore. I had to drop out of school. I got a job delivering packages, but they said I needed a car. I couldn't afford insurance right away, so I just drove anyway." His voice cracked. "I was going to fix it, I swear. I just needed time." The courtroom was still. I glanced at the prosecutor. He looked down at his file, silent. "And the failure to appear?" I asked. Daniel wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed. "I was at the hospital, Your Honor. She had surgery that day. I didn't think—" He didn't finish. He didn't need to. I felt it again. That familiar twist in my gut. The paperwork said irresponsible. The man in front of me said desperate. I looked down at the file. Then I closed it. "Mr. Prosecutor," I said quietly, "did your office inquire about any of this?" A pause. "No, Your Honor. Of course not. The system wasn't built for that. Or it wasn't built for why." I exhaled slowly, then looked back at Daniel. "Do you still have the job?" "Yes, sir." "Do you still have the car?" He hesitated. "Barely." That one word said everything. Barely. Barely holding on. Barely surviving. Barely standing. I leaned forward slightly. "Daniel," I said, my voice softer now, "if I impose these fines today, what happens?" His eyes filled instantly. "I lose everything," he whispered. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, just true. I sat back. For a moment I didn't speak, because this right here, this was the moment that mattered. Not the law, not the numbers, the choice. I glanced at the gallery. A few people were watching closely now, waiting, maybe hoping. I picked up my gavel. It felt heavy, just like it had that day. "Mr. Reyes," I said slowly, "the law exists to protect people, not to bury them." He looked up at me, barely breathing. "And today," I paused. Then, "I am dismissing these fines." The sound of the gavel echoed, thud. Daniel didn't move. He just stared, like he hadn't heard me. "Your fines are reduced to 0, I continued, "on one condition." His voice trembled. Anything, Your Honor. You get your insurance. A small, broken laugh escaped him. Yes, sir, I will, I promise. And you come back here in 30 days, I added. With proof. Yes, sir. I nodded. Then we're done here. He stepped back slowly, still in shock, still processing. Thank you, he whispered. But it wasn't just gratitude. It was relief. It was survival. It was another life quietly put back on track. As he walked out, I noticed something. The people in the gallery weren't just watching anymore. They were seeing, and maybe, just maybe, they were learning to ask the same question.